Welcome. In this session, we will see how to enable remote access to MySQL. And this is a high level step. We have to configure the MySQL server where we have to enable the firewall that can allow the incoming traffic on port number 3306. Since all this demo will be performed on EC2, you have to make sure that the security group should allow the SSH so that you can log into the EC2 instance, and you have to allow MySQL port, which is 3306 from the specific IP. In case it is my laptop, I have to allow that. If you have some other IP, you have to allow that IP address as well. And in the configuration file, you have to make sure that the bind address has to be replaced from localhost to the specific IP address, or you have to replace it with a star. Last but not the least, the user which is going to log in from the remote server that should be attached to the particular IP or the specific IP. The first step we are going to launch the EC2 instance, and we are going to launch login as EC2 user. So I have already created an EC2 instance. So we are just going to go with the steps. We have set the host name. We have disabled the SC Linux. So if you see the SC Linux status, we will be able to see that. The next thing which we are going to do is we are going to install the MySQL. So the first step, we are going to install the wget utility. The second thing, we are going to download the MySQL 8.0 community release RPM, and then we will install the downloaded package. So let's see. It should not take more than 1.5 minutes. So every time this step will be repeated, just to make sure that we have this step just to install the MySQL. And once you have done it, you have to delete the instance just to avoid any charges incurred on the EC2 instance. We have downloaded that. Now install the downloaded package. To install the downloaded package, you just have to use sudo yum install and the MySQL community release. This is also done. Now let's verify what is there in the yum repository. So we have MySQL 8 related components. Let's install MySQL server now. Now start the MySQL server. What you have to do is you have to check the status. You have to enable the MySQL D daemon, then you have to restart, and then you have to check the status. So this is the final step which we are going to do. The entire steps, it is less than under 5 minutes, so that should not take a long time. Okay, this is done, and this is the final step. Once it is done, we are just going to secure the MySQL installation just to make sure that we have the password set. We have to disallow the remote login using the root user. We have to remove all the anonymous user, the test databases and other stuff. It is just the final step. So you can see that it is running. We'll just execute MySQL secure installation. Do you want to set the secure validate password? So I will say no. I don't want to put the strong password. This is my dev environment. Let's set up the password. The password which we are going to set up is MySQL at 1234. This is done. This is also done. Remove anonymous user. Yes. Disallow remote root login. Yes. Remove test database. Yes. Reload privilege. Yes. And this is all done. The next thing which we have to do is you just locate the location of your MySQL configuration file. So these are the default options. You can find it, but in our case, it is somewhere else. It is MySQL 8.0. So what we will do is we will navigate to that location. This is the location. This is the configuration file. I will just take a backup and we will make some changes. Okay, let's choose Okay, let me make, okay, let's edit the configuration file. And in the MySQL D location, you can, though in our case it is already set, but if you have the older configuration, this should be removed from the local host, the loopback IP address to the actual IP address of the server, or yeah, if you have multiple interfaces, just replace it with the star. So I will say just bind address is equal to star. This is important. Without changing the bind address, it's not going to work. Just save it. And this requires a reboot. What you have to do is just restart and then check the status. So I will make one more step, systemctl restart, and then we will say status. Execute these two steps. This is restarted, then checking the status. It is active, running. The next step, just check the error log file just to see if everything is fine. Though it is active and running, but just to make sure, and you will be able to see some information. You can see that MySQL D is ready for the connection. This is the version number. This is the socket. This is the port. So all the information is available over here. The next step, you can create a user who should be able to log in from any location. Or let's, what we have to do is just validate the firewall and enable ports between two hosts in case if you wanted to connect from any other host, that is also possible. Or let us assume that this is our setup wherein we have already the MySQL instance running. We have ensured that bind address is so let's cross verify that it should be replaced with the star or the IP address of the instance. Then we have to create some users who should have the ability to connect from the remote server. So just let's do that. And the password is MySQL at 1234. Now let's create the user. So the first thing which we are going to see is the status of the users. So where is the command? Okay, I should keep it over here. So this will give you the status of all the users which are connected or which are available as of now. So you can see the host and the user. So everything is on the local host. That means there is no user who should be able to log in from the remote server. Although this EC2 instance allows the incoming connection from my laptop, but not from any other source. On port 3306 also I have to see whether I have enabled it or not in the security group. Now let's create the users. Okay, I'm just going to create the root user so that it should be able to log in from any IP. There's just a demo environment, so I'm giving this flexibility for the root user so that it can log in from any IP address. Though not a good stuff, but just for the demo. And the final step is just flush the privileges. Now let's verify whether I have a user who can log in. Yes, we have the root user. Now what we can do is we can test. So before testing, just to make sure that okay, our EC2 instance. This is my EC2 instance. This should allow the um, remote access on port number 3306. So we will go to security group. We will enable the uh, rule. So we will say MySQL port 3306. Who should be able to log in? my IP. That means I have enabled my IP, which can do SSH, which can use MySQL port. Just saved it, and now let's try to log in. I'll go to EC2 instance again. This is the server. Let's pick up the IP address. And how can we test? You have the MySQL workbench. This is GUI utility to connect with your MySQL instance. So this is the IP address. So hostname, I have mentioned the hostname, which is public hostname. Username is root. And now let's see. We create and we put in the password. Okay, we put the password as also root, or we will create some other user. Information, so successfully made the connection. This is okay, and you can see we are able to connect. You have nothing, no user database, so you are able to see like this. We can create some let's create a read-only user. So I'm just going to create a read-only user, which is identified by some password. Then I will say grant usage on all the resources to the user, which is bind to any IP. And then we are going to say grant select on all the objects to the read-only user, which is going to log in from any IP address, and then fresh the privilege. So just execute in one shot. This is done. Let's see the status of the user. Yes, we can see that. In case we wanted to replace it with the IP address of the specific IP address, you can do that. Just replace the percentage with the IP address. Let's create a writer user. So we are saying create user, some name, at the rate, percentage. This can be your IP address, some specific IP address, identified by some password. Grant usage on star to the user at the rate percentage. That means any IP address. Grant all privileges. That means it has the full access. So let's create this. There is some, okay, it should not be like this. I hope so. Grant all privileges. So this should work. Okay, let us see how it looks like now. You can see we have created three users from independent of the IP address, and we just checked like root is able to log in. We can do one more demo, or we can do one more setup. You can create a client machine of EC2 instance. You can disable the SE Linux. You can set some host name. You can install the MySQL client over there, and then um, in the security group, you can enable the access from the remote instance on port number 3306, so that when the remote instance is trying to log into to the MySQL instance, it should be allowed. So just a recap, what is that we have done for remote access. One of the first step is we should have a MySQL instance that should allow the incoming traffic on port number 3306. This is one of the troubling step. In our demo, we have used the EC2 instance, so you should have the security group that should allow the SSH so that I can log in using the PuTTY, and on the client part, I should be able to log in from the MySQL port from the specific IP. We changed the parameter file and we replaced the bind address from localhost to the specific IP address. In our case, we have replaced it with the star. And then we created a user that has the ability to log in from remote host. So that means when we created the the user, we have informed the MySQL instance that this particular user is bound to this particular IP address, or it is independent of the IP address. That means it can log in from anywhere. So this is how it works. It's very small, just to make sure that your bind address is not localhost. It should be specific IP address or a star, and then a user who should be able to log in remotely. I hope this is going to help, and thank you.